I think at this point, even I would have to concede we look like we need a striker. I don't think anyone out there thinks that Arsenal are fine as they are when it comes to goal scoring. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gooner channel. And it's finished Fulham 2, Arsenal 1. Turgid, tired, putrid. I mean, that game couldn't have gone much worse for us where we are at the moment in our season with the January transfer window looming. Arteta decided to change things up. And I think part of that was to show that we don't need to go and buy a striker in the January transfer window. We've got Eddie Nketiah, our leading goal scorer. But no one watching that match today could honestly think that Eddie Nketiah is the answer to our goal-scoring drought. Another totally anonymous performance from him with one chance, which he rushed at kind of. Look, I think all of us kind of feel that Eddie has come as far as he can in his journey with Arsenal. There was speculation that he might be leaving the January transfer window. Arteta moved quickly to slam that door. As I said, I think he put him on today, hoping that he would score us a winner, hoping that he'd get goal involvement. The decision to drop Jesus for him made sense in that respect. Jesus come under a lot of criticism externally for not delivering in front of goal. Martinelli, though, against West Ham, I think was more likely candidate to be dropped. And, you know, especially because Trossard had such a fantastic game at Fulham last season, you thought maybe this would be the game for him to take over on the left. But bringing Eddie Nketiah on gives you another problem. It's a problem we saw last season when Eddie had to play because Jesus was injured. There's no interchange. Now, that said, Martinelli looked much brighter in this game, at least to start with. And it was his shot saved into the path of Saka, who sort of looked guilty as it went in. But he was onside. It was a 1-0 goal, and it was early on and should have put the doubts to bed. But of course, going into this game, everyone's been talking about who we sign in January. Now, I just want to introduce a note of caution. I think at this point, even I would have to concede we look like we need a striker. I don't think anyone out there thinks that Arsenal are fine as they are when it comes to goal scoring. The contribution has fallen from other areas of the pitch, namely Odegaard and Martinelli. Kai Havertz has looked like someone we could start to rely on, but today he was ineffectual. Back to sort of performances that made him come under so much criticism. But I think we need to be honest with ourselves that the striker, I mean, first of all, we're linked with Ivan Toney and we would get fleeced. You know, we might end up having to pay 100 million. 100 million, I'm not sure we have. Other people in the frame. And on that point, if you're going to spend 100 million on Ivan Toney, go the extra 20 million and get Victor Osimhen in. Unless you really think Ivan Toney and Osimhen are similar. I don't. But, you know, who do you bring in? Solanke was talked about. He's enjoying rich vein of form. I don't know if you would necessarily think that Solanke would be the player that comes in and salvages an Arsenal title challenge. It seems a bit of an ask, really. And again, cost a fortune because no one wants to lose a striker in January. Vlahovic speculation won't go away, but I think that's done and dusted. And recently people have been talking about Lautaro Martinez, and wow, yes, 100%. If we could get him for 100 million and we have that money, let's do it. Let's sell Nketiah. Let's try and somehow balance the books. Let's roll the dice almost. But this game today felt like it was about tiredness again. And I know that people will rush to say that these are professional footballers. They should be able to play 38 games. But it comes back to the same criticism I make about Arteta. And, you know, the longer you have to make it, the more you worry that it's not going to change. That rotation, whether you think that the players on the bench or the players in the squad who don't even make the bench are just really not good enough at all, they are your squad. You know, we've got too many players that just don't look like they're going to get any minutes at all. And there are players amongst those that you think might make a difference. Emile Smith-Rowe, I had a sneaky feeling he was going to come on as a sub and do something. Instead, we went with Nelson, who didn't bring anything once again. And he's a player who's had, I think, in total about 120 minutes of game time this season so far. If we don't rotate, then you would expect after a certain point tiredness to set in. And maybe it's not even just physical tiredness, maybe it's mental fatigue. But I would single out Saka. He looks like a player who is not quite as sharp as we've come to expect him. Declan Rice has started to look tired, and today Saliba made mistakes. And they're three players that have been consistently played without pause whenever they can. It feels a little bit like we're a team that's desperate for the break in January. We have a period coming up in the next 3 weeks where we play 2 games, but one of them is the FA Cup game against Liverpool. And that's a week to prepare for that, but we are going to need to win that game because if we go out of the FA Cup and we only have the Champions League to chase for glory this season, that's a lot of pressure and would ultimately lead to disappointment, possibly as early as the quarterfinals or sooner. So do we go out and splash the cash on Lautaro Martinez or Victor Osimhen? Hopefully, I would love it. I absolutely would love it. I very, very much doubt it. And so desperation signings in January are never a good thing. Arteta said recently that, striker isn't the main option because we've been so weak at the, in other areas we've been short for 6 weeks. And look, everyone can say I told you so, but we knew we were going to be short in defence at the end of the summer transfer window because we had 6 defenders. And you can put Cedric on the bench all you like, but if you're never going to play him, then Ben White's just going to have to keep playing even if he's tired. If you're not going to promote Raul Walters at some point, have a look at him. If you are literally just going to expect Ben White to play every game, Saka to play every game, Rice to play every game, Saliba to play, so if you're going to expect these players to play one after the other, yes, they do get through the 90 minutes, but they're not at their peak of their playing powers. So, rotation, using the bench better, but there is just something that did not feel right about today because against West Ham, we created far too many chances to have lost that match, and today that was all gone. In a spell of the game where we really should have exerted some dominance and thrown people forward, there was a confusion around where everyone should be. There was just too much. I mean, ultimately watching the game, Fulham were first to every second ball. They won every challenge. They were more physical. They showed more desire. They broke more quickly, and they were far more dangerous looking in attack. And we got outplayed. It's one thing to lose a game like West Ham where you were the better team and just an anomaly. But if the game right after that you lose and you don't even look like you should have won, small problem. We have these blips every season. I'd hope this season would be different, and it's already shown it isn't. We do have these blips throughout the season, and we can still go on and win the Premier League if not necessarily we go and sign up a bunch of players, although if the right players come in, that's brilliant, but more because we're rested and we have. I would like to see a team meeting with players. Not necessarily about Arteta at this point, because at the moment everyone he's putting on the pitch is underperforming. But I hope that they have a little team meeting and have a discussion about what's expected of them, where it's going wrong, where they think they can make changes, just to build each other's confidence up. That's what these sort of family atmospheres that Arteta's seeking to build are all about. They're about being able to turn to different parts of the same group and hear the same message, have it reinforced, and until you believe it and it becomes real again. I think we can do that. I'm glad we've got the break coming up. I do think that the transfer window is going to be a huge disappointment for lots of people, and that if we also lose the FA Cup game to Liverpool, it's going to put a lot of pressure on Arteta and the team that we don't need. Really, we need the fans, every one of us, getting behind the team and just cheering them on and being grateful for where we are. But that's hard to do if you're fourth, and it's hard, and it's almost impossible to do if you fall out of the top 4. So we are going to need the team to lift us as much as they've always said they need us to lift them. It's gloomy. It's shit and it's gloomy. We've got a week until the FA Cup game, and that'll be shit and gloomy too, possibly. I don't know what to tell you. Trying to stay, not necessarily positive, but to try and understand what's happening so that I can kind of get an idea of what to expect for the rest of the season. At this point, it's obvious that we all feel like our title challenge has fallen apart, that we've lived this nightmare before. And last year, it just wasn't as soon as this. When everybody was saying last season, if we didn't win the league, then, our best chance had gone. I never felt that. But you know, those doubts are starting to creep into me right now. I'm sure they are for you. Let me know in the comments. But overall, it's been a really crappy period of football, and I'm glad there's a bit of a break coming. I will be doing a transfer window show every single day in January, and my going into it, full disclosure, I think it's going to be hugely disappointing. But it will be interesting to look at all the players we're linked with. There's some great ones to start the show with, and I will be doing a review of 2023 to look back on a year to see what we feel about it. So click subscribe to be notified when those videos are up and running, and look, smash a like. Couldn't we all do with a little bit of love and affection? And you can show that with a like. So please do that. And until I see you again, be lucky. Lots of love.